Hello and welcome to Get to Know Them podcast. This is a podcast in which I'm gonna talk with some of the world's highest performers in order to learn more about them. I'm your host, Cameron Shuligoy. I hope you enjoy. Hello, who do we get to know today?
My name is Joshua Monda, a professional triathlete out of Vancouver, Washington.
That's interesting to hear. You already mentioned that you're a professional triathlete, but I think that you're much more than that. If you had to expand a bit, what would you say? Who is Joshua and what do you do?
Joshua is a father of two boys, 10 and 12 years old, a very happy husband to a beautiful wife named Ashley. And I am a small business owner in the accounts receivable management and business to business debt collections industry.
Sounds like you have a very busy life and you do a lot of things. Let's unpack it one by one. You said that you're a professional triathlete. How did you start doing triathlon and when did it happen?
Yeah, so I didn't have much of a sports background growing up. In fact, the only sport I was involved in was boxing at the age of 16. And I was kind of just involved in boxing at a community center with some guys that were trying to help keep youth active and out of trouble and off the streets. And so that's really all I knew as far as sports. But through boxing, I learned how to run, or what they considered running in boxing, which is what we would probably think of as jogging. But as I got older into my 20s and I wanted to get into shape, I didn't really have it in me to continue boxing on a regular basis, but I loved the running aspect of it that came with the boxing training. So I started training for my first marathon in 2005. Ran my first marathon, didn't quite hit the goals that I wanted to. So I hired a coach and to get me to qualify for the Boston Marathon the next year. And that coach happened to be a triathlon coach. And so while he was training me for the Boston Marathon, he convinced me to give triathlon a try. And did my first triathlon in 2006 and got hooked after that. And I was an age grouper or amateur triathlete over the years, on and off, with some breaks here and there, all the way until November of last year, 2023, which is when I did my first professional race in Ironman, Florida. So it took me 17 years to finally get up the courage to to race professionally.
Yeah, you're quite of a veteran. So what made you go professional? Was it a tough choice given your age? Let's say because you're not that old, but of course in triathlon and in general in endurance sports terms, you're not the youngest of the bunch.
Yeah, so I was 41 for my first professional race. I'm 42 now. So yeah, I'm definitely not young. Um, when I started really training hard for triathlon, and I feel like started stepping it up a couple levels from where I was previously as an amateur in years past, was just after or around 2020, 2021. And I started to train with another local triathlete who races professionally, Evan Price. And it was training with him, and he's 33. um, he's the one that convinced me and that kind of helped me start to believe that like I was good enough to kind of race in the mid pack in the professional field, and I didn't need to just limit myself to racing as an age grouper. Um, in 2023, earlier, I started winning a couple of 70.3 races overall in the age group field. And that's when I kind of knew, like, all right, it's time for me to give it a shot and see how it goes.
Yeah, and I admire that a lot because that probably wasn't an easy decision, or it probably had some consequences. If nothing else, like you said, you were at the top of the age group field, and now you're like a mid pack in the professional field. What are some
Yeah.
other consequences that came with this decision to become pro? Did your life change at all?
So I wouldn't say my life changed much. And maybe that was part of the decision. Like I knew I was training so much as an amateur triathlete, and kind of my work-life balance, the way I have it set up is I was able to train as much or more than some of the best amateurs in the world. And so I kind of felt that maybe it was more fair for me to just step it up and race as a professional, since those were the type of hours that I was training. Since racing in the professional field, I would say the intensity of the training has increased a lot. Um, I feel there's more, each workout matters more, or I feel like it does. And so, yeah, I think there's maybe a little bit of anxiety that comes with it that I've had to work through. Just not wanting to, I feel like I'm always trying to kind of prove, that I can get to a certain level. And so, yeah, I think that's been the hardest part, is just the importance of the workouts and the training, because I really don't want to show up on race day undertrained now in the professional field, where in the age group field you kind of like blend in.
And what would you say is your goal for the future in triathlon?
So at this age, like I keep telling myself that, I keep throwing these limiting beliefs at myself and telling myself that, oh, like I'm never going to win one of these races, so I need to be happy with just top 20. And then I would do a race and I'd finish, like this last race in Ironman Canada, I finished sixth. So I do believe under the right circumstances that, maybe I can podium and possibly even win like a professional race. So if I could do that in the next 2 years, that would be great. Other goals that really have been driving me lately is I just get a lot of messages from other men that are 40 plus years old across the country, who are inspired every day that, I'm doing what I'm doing and I'm continuing to push myself and kind of push the boundaries. So, if anything, just finding ways to motivate other men and women out there, and letting them know that, it's never too late to chase your dreams. That's kind of my big goal.
Yeah, that's very nice to hear. And I'm very glad that you took this step, because I think that sometimes somebody just needs a little more encouragement to get started on their own. Do you maybe have a couple of ways that you're doing that, like via some Instagram or videos or something, or just person to person?
Yeah, a lot of it is just responding, making myself open to people and responding to like direct messages on Instagram, which is what I get a lot of these days. I try to post on Instagram, but I still struggle to kind of keep up on the social media the way some of the younger athletes do. Um, One thing that we found helpful doing lately, me and my buddy Evan, and also Simon Shi and Ari Clow that I train and race with, is we started doing Instagram lives before and after some of our big races, and we'll interview one another and just kind of talk through race goals, strategies, how the training was going into the race, and then if we have time, we'll try to recap, jump on a Instagram live and recap the race afterwards.
Okay, that's nice to hear and sounds very interesting. I'm gonna put a link to the latest one into the show notes. So if somebody wants to check it out and tune in next time, they'll have no problem doing so.
Cool, thank you.
You mentioned before that you're also a husband and a father, and you mentioned the work-life balance. So now I'm wondering, how do you manage to balance all of these things that are happening in your life?
Yeah, it is a juggle. Um, and for one, I think just having an open family calendar with my wife, that's very important. So we put everything on our shared calendars, so that we're able to kind of manage what everything she has going on in her life, everything I have going on, and everything the boys have going on. Um, I think one of the biggest things that's helped me, uh, do what I've been doing through triathlon is my coach and I um, talk once a week for like 30 to 45 minutes. And one of the big parts of our phone call is what my family and my work schedule looks like for the next week coming up. And now that my coach knows everything that I have going on, he's able to kind of build a training plan around my life. So that way I'm able to still get the work in. And on the days that I have serious family or work commitments going on, I maybe don't have as big of workouts going on. So I'm not as stressed or pressed for time. So a lot of communication with my wife and my coach and a lot of careful planning week by week.
Yeah, that's very nice and also very important because I think some people, especially age groupers, do a mistake and they don't try to fit in the training around their lives, but they try to fit their lives around the training, and then it all comes crashing down. So yeah,
Yeah.
you should basically do just as much as you're capable of doing without interfering with your family, work, and other stuff.
And I'll add to that by saying that when I get my workouts from my coach every week, I look at those workouts very carefully. Almost every day, I kind of read through what I have upcoming for the rest of the week, not just what I have that day. And so I'm able to think in my head, all right, Saturday, or let's do something during the week. I have a very hard 2 hour bike ride on Thursday, and also a hard 5 kilometer swim. Um, how am I going to make sure that I'm rested, well fed, not stressed out, and I have enough time to get those workouts in? And so I'm constantly thinking about that in the back of my mind, like, all right, I got whatever I'm doing today, whatever I'm planning, I have to make sure that, I find a way to get those workouts in as well. So always being mindful of what is on the schedule, I think is the big thing for me.
Yeah, that's very nice and a good piece of advice for everyone. But inevitably, you stumble upon some difficulties. And I'm wondering what keeps you going when the things get hard for you?
What keeps me going when the things get hard for me? Um, yeah, I think really a lot of it is being a dad and having kids that kind of see what I'm doing every day, day in, day out. And because I have gone through a lot of hard times throughout my life and I found ways to overcome them. And, I come out somewhat on top at the end of the day. Um, I think, just not letting things defeat me or get me down mentally or emotionally, and just believing that things are going to be okay, and just to take things one day at a time, one step at a time, and you'll get through it. And I know I got my kids, watching me, so I just try to be a good example for them, and just show them that, it's okay if you have a bad day. It's okay if you're not always, in the best of moods, but um, keep moving forward, keep doing the right thing, keep working, and things will be all right.
Yeah, that's a very nice message. If we turn the page a bit to a more positive side, what would you say has been the biggest success so far in your life?
Uh, Biggest success. So it's a tie. I think there's two things. One of them is I got into a lot of trouble as a kid, a young adult or a teenager, an adolescent. And I was expelled from public schools and uh, got into a lot of trouble. And I did not attend school the whole first half of my freshman year in high school. Um, and then I ended up finding an alternative school to get involved in at the age of 14. And fast forward a couple of years, I graduated high school a whole year early. So I 2.5 years it took me to graduate high school, and ended up going to a 4 year university, getting accepted into a 4 year university after graduating that alternative school with that gave me no grades. It was only a pass or no pass school. And I was able to get accepted into a 4-year university with no GPA at all. So that was, I think, my first big accomplishment, and just kind of a proof as a kid, like, hey, if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish anything. My second was getting involved in the industry that I'm in now at the age of 19. And I ended up turning that into a career. So what I'm doing now, I've been doing since I was 19. And it's become a career for me. And it's like sticking with that my whole life, my whole adult life has been the best decision I think I've ever made.
Okay, that's very nice. And I have a couple of follow-up questions. Do you think that these difficulties you mentioned as an adolescent basically helped you become the person you are now? And although they were, very difficult, do you think they were kind of good in a way? Because otherwise you wouldn't become such a successful person you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question, Clement. Yeah, I think one, it was good. I kind of got a lot of that, a lot of, I learned some lessons really early in life because of the mistakes I made. And that kind of gave me a head start. And so I kind of grew up pretty quickly because of that. And that's kind of what got me into my career at the age of 19. And just learning that if I put my mind to things, I can get anything done. I bought my first house when I was 21. So like, I don't think if I hadn't learned from those mistakes at an early age and kind of been forced to kind of grow up and mature quicker, I don't think I would have had as much success in my young adult life.
Okay, that's great. And I have one more question about the job you're doing, because you said you found your passion very early and you're still sticking to it. What do you think made you make the right choice and choose this career path you're into now? Was it something that you've always wanted to do? Was it just kind of a lucky decision? Or is there maybe a third option?
Yeah, I kind of just fell into the field. I never thought that I was going to be like in sales or anything like that. And that's eventually what I started doing in this industry is I became a sales rep in the account receivable management and business to business debt collection industry. And I don't know, I got involved in it, and I was very interested when I was 19 because there were a lot of people working in this industry who were just treating it like a job, and they were getting paid like it was just a job. And a lot of them they didn't seem like very happy people to me at the time. But then there was a few men and women who were making like really good money. And they seemed very happy, and they seemed like they were having a blast. And so I just clung to those people and asked them questions and tried to learn from them. And I just really made a goal to be like the hardest working person in the company, because that's all I really had going for me at the time. I didn't have the maturity or the experience in business that a lot of other people had who I was working with. And I was calling and talking to like CFOs across the country. And I was 19 years old, and I sounded like I was 19 years old. Um, and so I didn't have a lot of credibility when I was calling people. But the fact that I was working like 3 times harder than anybody else meant that my learning curve just was going up, because I was finding myself into more scenarios, more situations that I could learn from. And that's eventually what made me, um, be, one of the leaders in the industry doing what I was doing. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I think that's kind of a parallel to your triathlon career, because you just keep working hard, keep showing up, and eventually it pays off, it seems.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. And that's why I love endurance sports so much, because it was like my old coach used to say there's no miracles in endurance sports. So there's no like last second buzzer beater 3-point shot, or last second goal that bounces off somebody's head in football. Um, it's the results that you're seeing out of the athletes on the race day. That's a reflection of all the work that they're putting in the training. Um, Except obviously, unless the one outlier is if somebody's doping, then maybe if there's miracles, it's because somebody's doing something illegal. So, but yeah, that's what I love about endurance sports is that it's really all like who's putting in the work, and who's more dedicated and more consistent in their and smart with their training.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. And this is also the reason why I like endurance sports, because I was never talented for any sport I did. But I found out quickly that, let's say, for running and cycling, not so much for swimming because of the technique, but if I just
Yeah.
keep working, keep pedaling, keep running, I'm gonna get better no matter how weak of a talent I am. I'm gonna get better, and that's what keeps me going. So, yeah. But if we switch a bit to a bit more fun or personal questions, I'm wondering what's the one thing that you wanted to do for a long time but just haven't done it yet?
Um, I would say like travel to like Europe or Australia or Asia or Africa. I would say take real vacations because I think so much of what we end up doing, us endurance athletes or triathletes, is we take racecations. And so I think maybe I did go to London with my wife. That was a non race related trip earlier this year, and we had a lot of fun. So I would say do more like travel to Italy or do a nice like 2 week vacation with my wife.
Okay. And when are you gonna do it?
Dang, she's gonna listen to this podcast too. This podcast shows up on the Tesla screen. Uh, I would say at least sometime in the next 2 years.
Okay. That's very nice to hear.
Yeah, now it's on record. She's
Yeah,
gonna love
very.
you.
Yeah. I'm wondering now, if you could only eat one meal for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Oh, definitely Chinese food. Just like the typical like orange chicken or General Tso's chicken. That's my weakness. I can eat that all day.
That's a very unconventional answer, but yeah, I like it and I totally understand it. And now I'm wondering, what's your guilty pleasure?
Besides Chinese food, and probably ice cream. Um, ooh, guilty pleasure. My wife and I, we watch some. Yeah, we kind of we watch some TV shows. We watch some reality shows that nobody else I know like watches these shows, but my wife and I have been watching them for like years, and we totally geek out on them. And I listen to podcasts about those reality shows, and so yeah, I'd say watching reality shows with my wife.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I also haven't heard that one before, but yeah, that's nice. I'm wondering, what's the one thing that annoys you or makes you angry?
Um, in just regular life, uh, I'd say when people are eating loudly with their mouth open or slurping on soup for some reason that just drives me up a wall. If I'm in a quiet room and people are slurping, that's on soup. That is gets under my skin.
Yeah, I also hate that. And I just want to, I don't know, take that soup and throw it away somewhere or
Even when
throw
my
it.
kids do it, even when my kids do and they're my own kids, it annoys me.
So how do you react in these situations then?
I put an AirPod in my ear and put a podcast on to kind of buffer out the sound.
Okay, that's a nice technique, yeah. I need to remember now that I need to always carry an AirPod in my pockets in case something comes up.
There you go.
If you could enforce one rule for the entire world, which one would it be?
Enforce one world for the entire world, one rule for the entire world. I mean, it might be cliche for this for us or this podcast, but like I feel it's really important. It's just everybody needs to find a way to just to get out and move and get some kind of exercise and to get out the door every day. Um, and I just see so many people that struggle and people that reach out to me and need help with wanting to get into shape. And I try to help them. But what I find out is that it's really people just really have trouble getting out the door. They feel like they're too tired or they don't have the time. And if you just get out the door and start moving, I mean, you're always, even if it's rough or it's hard, when you're done, nobody ever regrets it. So everybody get out and exercise 30 minutes at least each day.
Yeah, that's a nice rule. And I have a follow-up question because I'm also a coach myself, and I also talk with some of people like that. And I'm wondering, how do you respond to these people? What do you say to them? Because inevitably, they are the ones who are making the choice to go out of the door or not, to do it or not. You can tell them to, just get off the couch, just get moving. But if they don't flip the switch and they don't do it, then you can't force them. So how do you respond?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I struggle with is how to follow up on that. I try to like lead by example, but I know that doesn't always work. I don't know about that. I'm struggling. I struggle with knowing how to respond to that. I haven't figured that out yet. So if you have a good response or a way that you deal with that with your athletes, I'd love to hear it.
No, I also haven't figured it out yet. That's why
Okay,
I asked. So if one of us figures it out, we're gonna have to tell the other person that.
I appreciate it. Yep, I'll do the same.
You mentioned before that you've accomplished a lot of things in your life. And I'm wondering, what is the one thing that you still want to achieve in life?
One thing that I still want to achieve in life, yeah, I would say because I'm very, very, very content. That's a good question. The one thing I want to achieve in life is that I still want to achieve in life is just really have prepare my kids so that once they're ready to move out or go on to university, like they have all the tools and skills um, to get out there and at least get started in the real world on their own. So really just hopefully try to set my kids up for success is probably the most important thing to me right now.
Okay, that's a very nice answer. And I think that this is also a good point to slowly steer this conversation towards the end. And at the end, I let my guest leave a question for the next guest on the show. My
Okay.
previous guest was Uldenša. He is a young professional triathlete from Slovenia who races short course. And he wants to know, which is your favorite race and why?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So years ago, and this race is actually supposed to be making a comeback, but it's been gone now for maybe 8, 9, 10 years. And it's a race weekend called Wildflower. And when we were younger, I thought of it as like I called it the Woodstock of triathlon. And mostly because it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere down in California, like Central California, and um, there's no real hotels nearby, so you have to camp. And it's a very challenging race, very hilly on the bike and the run. Um, and everybody just camps out for like 4 or 5 days for the whole weekend of the race and hangs out with each other, and you meet a lot of people. And you're not just like sitting in your hotel all day or in your Airbnb with, one or two people, like we tend to do probably at a lot of races on race weekend. You're kind of just forced to be around a lot of people. And the there was a lot of college kids who come out for the race who they recruit to be volunteers for the half Ironman, which takes place on a Saturday. And then there's a lot of college kids who race the collegiate Olympic distance race, which is on a Sunday. But a lot of those college kids, they run the aid stations on this Saturday, the half Ironman race. And those aid stations would just be wild. Like the kids go all out, they're kind of partying. Some of them have been up all night, from the night before, like they didn't go to sleep. And it's just a really cool experience. It's called Wildflower Triathlon, and they are supposed to be making a comeback this next year. So look into it.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. And from the way you spoke about it, I guess that your name is going to be on the start list if the race does come back, right?
Let's hope. The only thing is, it looks like that race might be the weekend after Ironman Texas, and that may be my spring Ironman. We'll see. We have to wait for the professional pro race calendar to come out. So if I do another race other than Ironman Texas, I'll definitely do Wildflower next year. If not, Wildflower will for sure be a race for me in 2026.
Okay, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Yep.
So, what is your question for the next guest on the show?
My question would be, uh, what do you think about while you're racing? Like, what goes through your mind when you're in the heat of it, when the going gets tough and you're deep into a race? What, if anything, like, are you thinking about?
Okay, that's a very interesting question because I thought about what I'm thinking about during the race, and I honestly don't know if I think about anything at all, except just, I don't know, 5 more minutes until the next gel, 10 more kilometers until the next aid station. What do you think about during the race?
I've struggled with that over the years. I find that if I think about too many things, I kind of slow down. Um, and if I try to do race math in my head, then it really screws me up because I'll start to think, oh, I think I'm averaging, 550 pace. So if I keep running 555 miles for am I still going to finish this race in under 4 hours and 2 minutes? And from trying to do all that math in my head and thinking, next thing I know, I've run a 610 mile. So if I think too much, I feel like I slow down. But if I really focus my thinking and just think about three different things, or if I focus on a mantra, then I find that I really like stay into a groove. So in Ironman, I run this phrase in my head over and over. I think nutrition, technique, effort. That's all that matters. Am I getting in the nutrition? Check. Am I running with good technique? Check. All right. Now that I got those two checked off, now I can put forth the effort, and try to run at a good solid pace. So nutrition, technique, effort.
Okay, that's very nice advice. I hope that everyone who's listening is taking notes because you don't get advice like this every day. But anyway, it was a real pleasure talking to you, Joshua. You mentioned before that people are DMing you on Instagram, and I'm wondering where can people follow your journey and get involved with you?
Yeah, Instagram is the best place. I'm also on Facebook. If you just look up Joshua Monda, you'll see me on Facebook. And yeah, those are the two best ways. If you want to connect with me professionally, I have an open profile on LinkedIn as well. So
Okay, that's nice. I'm gonna put the links to all these profiles into the show notes so people will have no trouble finding you. But
you're the
like I
best.
said,
Thanks, Clement.
yeah, it's a pleasure. And it was also a pleasure to talk with you. Like I said, I'm looking forward to following you and seeing if you can actually podium or win a professional race like you wish. But yeah, like I said, it was awesome talking to you, and I wish you all the best.
Sounds good. You too. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.